Welcome to another episode of the Pennock Knockdown, a podcast where we talk about marketing strategies and tactics. I've got Jeremy Yang with us today. He is the founder of Digital Goliath and excited to kind of get into the work he's doing. He and I at Pennock overlap a little bit in what we do, so this should be a really interesting conversation. Jeremy, thank you for coming on the show today.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to start by understanding what you were doing professionally leading into Digital Goliath, just kind of like paint the scene of your experience.
Love to get into it. So I was like a high school dropout. So I worked in various jobs. I ended up becoming like what in Aussies they call a tradie. So I was working with my hands, doing TV antennas, satellite cabling, a lot of that. Did that for 12 years. Businesses like that, I had my own business for 12 years. With business like that is a ceiling in how much you can make. So I was doing about 150K and it was very like weather dependent as well. So you couldn't work outdoors and everything. And I think there's always something inside me that I didn't finish high school. So I actually ended up selling that business, went back to university to do a business degree out of all things because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Out of the beginner subjects in university, marketing is the one that really stood out, resonated with me. And also something that my classmates just wasn't very confident in, and they just couldn't understand. And that's what I did. I actually scored really high, came out with a perfect GPA, but I couldn't get a paid job because I was already 33. So I started going from 150K a year back to being an unpaid intern, which Australia, they made it illegal now. But back then, that's the only way you could get your foot in the door. Did that for a whole year, which is unheard of because usually like 3 months and they because I didn't fit the mold, I had to do it for a long time. And eventually I bounced around and got into more marketing roles. And one of my bosses was there and he was sensing how impatient I am when it comes to results. And he said, Jeremy, if you want results fast, you have to get into paid advertising, like paid media buying. That's the word. I didn't even know what that was. And actually, thanks to his wisdom, like he was right. I think that paid media was the best thing that happened because you could get results like almost straight away. So that's what I did. I followed a mentor who I still talk to every day now in the paid media, in the paid ads game. She helped me start my first agency. Happened to happen at 2019, just before COVID. So whatever you did was going to work because we were in e-commerce. So how did I get into e-commerce? Because I was crap at copywriting. Still can't write copy. And e-commerce was more carried by, products, videos, more button clicking instead of coming, because back then, like the funnels were convoluted, like they were upsell, like, you know what I mean? Like the non-e-commerce kind of funnels, like the coaching funnels and the book funnels was like quite a lot of writing, no ChatGPT, a lot of sales psychology stuff. That stuff really worked. Long ass ads, long ad copy, a lot of stuff that was a thing. So I couldn't get into that. And e-commerce was just the thing where product description, SKUs, segmenting, and that's how I ended up. And just so it happens that it was just before COVID. So when COVID, everything exploded. I guess I got taken on the wave. I had to learn everything on the fly over there. Yeah. And then that's been about 7 years ago. That was by myself. And now we have a team of 10. So very different.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Okay. So Digital Goliath, it sounds like, is doing e-commerce, paid marketing. Are there other services you guys are offering, or is that your primary?
Oh, at the moment, e-commerce and lead gen. So when I first started, it was all about the platform side, which means Google ads, Facebook ads, anything to do with tracking. We used to talk to the web dev, anything to do with website. We used to have to go find someone. They used to have their own strategy, their own scripts. Let's have everything ready. Even like we did the analytics part of it, but we never really went into the Shopify side of it, never went into the CRM, email marketing, like none of that. So now what the service has become is more to do with before the ads start, which is scripting, videos, UGC, not so much UGC like creation or sourcing the UGC creators, but giving them an idea and examples, inspiration of what they actually need, right? Explaining to them the numbers, coming up with the calculators, doing the ads and the post analysis, reporting and feeding that back into the beginning of the loop again on how we'll do it next round. Yeah, more holistic, I guess.
So let me make sure I understand this correctly. So you are not helping them find creators or influencers to partner with, but you are doing the ads for like branded content for these e-commerce stores.
Yeah, like just say that a brand, like an e-commerce brand would, because the types of businesses I work with is kind of a little bit different to your one, because I heard what you were talking about working with marketing managers, right? Because in your perception, like the brands do have to be a bit bigger, because if they don't have a marketing manager, then they're not kind of taking the marketing that seriously. Would you agree? Like that's kind of something that you've mentioned before, right?
Yeah. So I do think it's true. Like when a brand is just starting up to like the first couple of million in annual recurring revenue, it's really hard to justify, first of all, full-time headcount in many capacities, but oftentimes the marketer on staff then is a fractional and they're typically heading up like all of marketing. So their level of depth and knowledge of any one single channel is somewhat limited. And I feel like so many CMOs still come from brand marketing, not necessarily from performance marketing. So I would say it's not that they're not taking their marketing as seriously. They just have to be really practical about where they're spending their dollars. And the agency is kind of called on to do a lot of the things an in-house team would
which is
maybe
pressure.
do.
Which puts a lot of pressure as well on the agency side. To answer your question, I would say that a lot of the businesses we work with is probably around the $500,000 annual revenue mark to about the $3 million mark. And that time is very owner focused, which I love because, like there's no messages that get lost in between a step, which is cool. So to go back to your question, we help them like ideate the type of creatives. A lot of times people come to you, they go, I want to run paid ads because I know it works. But then you have to talk them through the education part, like what's your, where are your assets? What are your angles? What are the big buckets? Is there one unboxing video? Are you going to do some teach and pitch with face to camera, etc.? So even though I'm not very good at like coming up with wild, wacky ideas that's going to go viral, I can help them discern because we spend so much money in ads. So when they come up with something, I can tell them like, yeah, that's good or that's not going to hit. I think that's something that that's part of the process now, which I didn't even realize that people wanted when I first started.
Right. I know. I mean, the landscape has really changed in the 7 years. You mentioned like 2019 might as well have been like 1990 at this point because it was so different in the way things went. So in the lead gen lane, is it still running ad buys to get them efficient leads at a low cost per lead, or is it a different type of lead generation program you've got running?
A lead gen, a lot of it is going to be on Google, which is going more leaning on Google search, PMax, as you know. And then maybe 20-30% on Facebook. Fully in agreement with what you always talk about, like the founder, like how capable they are on video and how comfortable they are to camera. It's going to play a big role when it comes to lead gen directly for the founder, I think. That's what, but to answer your question, it's pretty much the same game, except that with smaller businesses, this is where we probably differ a little bit, is like that our fees has to be like low. Like, do you know what I mean? Like we have to use like my 10-man teams from the Philippines, which we built up from the ground up. I don't outsource anything. It's all in-house. So me coming from a small business for 12 years, I know that like nobody is waiting for SEO for 9 months to work. People get jumpy after like 60 days. Stuff has to work.
It's which very is true.
And when I was listening to your background as well, like coming from inventory, that was like very interesting because I didn't even know much about SKUs and replenishing stock. I mean, that must be like advantageous as you moved with the brands as they were growing, right? Because the technical terms are there, the foundations are there.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't think I realized how helpful that was until one of my closest friends who I met at an agency a decade plus ago at this point, she stayed in the inventory lane. So we always had fun talking about each other's area of expertise. And she's now straddling marketing and planning, inventory planning, because all of the promos and stuff for these larger corporations she's gone to work at really rely on making sure that inventory positions are getting pushed through the way plans existed. So I think it's interesting because being an outsider as an agency and a partner, a vendor of the clients, they don't utilize us in that scope as often as I think we could be hopeful. That being said, like working with earlier stage businesses, because ours are typically like $1 million to 15 million when we find them, they sometimes are just so premature in like their idea of how to manage inventory and stuff anyway, that like it's just, it's kind of unfortunately throwing stuff at the wall to see which SKU, like they're not even sure what their best SKU is in some cases by the time
really?
we start working together. So it's just kind of like infancy figuring stuff out. I think we had a client in 2025 who was out of stock on basically half of their assortment for, I want to say like 7 months.
Oh, wow.
Somehow they were doing pre-sale and like orders kept coming through,
Yeah.
but it felt really weird to be running ads for them because I think midway through the 7-month outage, that's when they were like, oh, it was supposed to be 3 months and now it's 4 more months. And we're like, we don't know if the client or the end consumer is going to be okay waiting that long for something like a high-end skincare line.
For sure.
It worked out for them. So I think those are the things with those earlier stage businesses. Like you just kind of have to roll with what they're doing and offer the consultative advice where you can, but sometimes they just really want to focus on figuring whatever else out they need to in their business.
I think it's a great example because, when you talk about like ROAS and people always talk about ROAS, and how you talk about we go from 1.5 to 8x ROAS. And it's also, to me, it's like, and you talk a lot about market efficiency, right? Market efficiency ratio as well. Like I call it the blended ROAS, etc. Right? So to me, people come and go, what ROAS do you get? Because they watch YouTube videos, like they don't know any better, right? Like a client or prospect. The thing is, it's also to do with their average order value and recurring. Like I would say that when, you watch people like Ezra Firestone and those 7-figure e-commerce brands, they will go down to 0.9 if they had to go in the red, right? And that's not even counting the stuff that they brought in, the staffing members, right? And that one on 8x could be more to do with like a higher ticket item or more of a one-off item or whatever, like they could have sourced the products for a lot cheaper, for example, or at the right price point, the branding game. So to me, it's like so deep. That's what I'm trying to tie back to inventory days. It's like so much more to it than just the ROAS.
Right. And that's like part of our planning process now is understanding not product margin at the product by product level, but truly kind of their contribution margin or what they kind of need to back into from the back end so that we can then say, now this is your drop dead ROAS. Like if it falls below this or MER falls below this, we're not in a good spot. And I think that they appreciate us doing that. But I think in the beginning weeks of working with them, they're like, why the heck do you want all these metrics on us? Like it almost feels like you're asking for too many details about the business. But I do think like once our team figures out how to articulate that super well and land it with them, it's important for them to share that information with us. And it just helps us get that much more better. Like we've got a brand health score that we're just launching to understand what parts of the business are maybe the problem. And sometimes it might be paid ads. Sometimes it might be retention or efficiency of their mix of new versus returning customer, or maybe their product margins are not great.
That's a great initiative. Also, like when you know how you were on the brand side for a long time and you work with agency, look, I don't mean to make this about myself. I felt like that's like really advantageous because and then you work in the agency side because you saw how things worked, right? Whereas I was just kind of like, all right, let's go. Like, let's see what works. I don't even know how to price it. I probably still don't know how to price my services correctly. And then like, because you would have seen all of that, right? The percentage of ad spend, like all of that, like who was capable and all that. So was that huge coming into your own agency when you did decide to do it?
I think it was, but so, I mean, that was the whole premise of starting Pennock was I wanted to be the agency that I couldn't quite find to hire when I was in-house because I was in the position of determining which agency partners we worked with. Not that I couldn't do the work. It's just I was busy managing all of marketing. So I needed vendors to help. And I feel like, I mean, I hate to think of that I was like a gotcha client, but I feel like they kept telling me some stuff on client calls and in meetings and stuff, or with when they were the agency and I was the client. But like they never really knew my business as well as I wanted them to. And so I think that was really the kickoff to starting this agency. So I think it was entirely helpful. And I do have some team members on my similar staff team. I think we've got 11 full-time employees right now. Some of them only have worked agency. So I'll remind them of like basically the prompts and the questions that a client's going to think through when they see data like this, just so we're prepared to answer all stuff.
Because you can anticipate the question that's coming because you've seen on both sides and you kind of know what the client side is really focused on.
Yeah, but I was going to throw out, not to just kind of keep talking about my experience with
Yeah,
Pennock.
sure.
In the early days of running this agency, I did not do casual conversations with the clients to like say what's working, what isn't working,
Yeah.
what you change, because I was just so nervous that anytime I offered that up as an option to talk about, they'd be like, oh, maybe we don't need you. Like, what are we doing with you guys? So I was really nervous for the first few years to have those casual conversations with clients. But now that I've gotten over that fear and roadblock, it's been really helpful to just be like, hey, my team's been sending you this type of email every Monday about status, about our changes. Like, is that helpful? Would you like it delivered different ways? And so we can get tactical or go high level. But I think just hearing from clients, because I am now so many years removed from being brand side, like even my knowledge of what a brand wants is probably a little dated, if not a lot. So I think that having those touch points with brands, especially now that I'm not account managing the clients and I'm not building their strategies, it's the rest of my team. So I feel like I'm enough removed from the day to day to be like, give it to me straight. And that's been really helpful.
That's great. I mean, even to be, so I don't think I can ever be at that level where my hands are off. I mean, it's good, right? Because I think that like you probably have locals and things like that. And that's really helpful and you're from Cali, right? So you came studying brands and you came from that like more of a local environment. I think that to do that with like a more like offshore team be really difficult. I don't think I'll ever do that.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that's fine. Like you as the agency owner is picking a lane, like you're kind of building more of a lifestyle agency right now is what I hear, like most of the M&A people would call it, because you are so pivotal to the success of the agency. Anyone who's going to acquire you is basically truly acquiring you, Jeremy Yang, because you're doing the doing. Where in our world, you know, I've got a team doing this stuff. Are we selling our agency? No, but you know, we're in a position where if someone were to come in and have interest,
there's a valuation, etc. Yeah, I didn't even think about that because you know, I call it lifestyle, but I'm here like 12 hours a day. You know, so it's not really lifestyle. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, it's not the lifestyle I want, but it does work. Yeah,
it's the grind. Yeah, for sure.
That's the hard thing. I mean, and you know from your past roles too, or your last company that it's a big burden.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely.
So Jeremy, let's go back to some marketing tactics a little bit. Like, I mean, 2026 has started off with a handful of changes or hype about potential changes and this and that. What are you like the most excited about that's maybe newer? It doesn't have to be a 2026 thing, but like what are some areas in which you didn't think you'd be talking about 2 years ago, but now it's like front and center with clients?
I think the big one in Google is Performance Max becoming more granular and they're giving control back to the operators, which is a huge one. Because they always like this black box thing. I hate black box. Like there's no negative keywording. You can't tell what if it's brand, how much is brand, where your ads are placed. Is it display? Because it's display, so you're stuffed, right? If your whole budget is going to display ads or whatever, like junk placement, you're stuffed. So now they are giving the control more back to the operators, allowing to segment it better, allowing to, you know, articulate the products better, giving you a lot more control. So that's excited about Google for the e-commerce side. For Meta, I think the hype, I can't remember how long, I think a month and a half ago, Andromeda, that was all the hype. I never believed in it. I still don't. None of my clients were affected by that because we did already have a variety of creatives that was running and people was like, oh, you can't make the similar videos anymore. I think you can. I think you can still make the similar type of videos, testing different hooks and all of that. I think you just got to be more proactive in having what I call more bullets in the chamber. When something stops working, like you better have the next one ready. Like don't go ask for it after it stopped working. I think that's worked really well. So I think that's what my thing is. We haven't been able to do good numbers on TikTok ads yet because I don't do a lot of, you know, not all of my business is about TikTok. Not all of my business is about e-commerce. So a lot of times, you know, the branding play doesn't really work that well. Yeah. So which I think that you have done a lot better on.
Right. Well, I mean, is TikTok Shop even allowed yet in Australia? Yeah, I think it's coming. It's coming soon. I don't know if it'll still be this quarter or later, but we've got a brand that does a decent amount of business in Australia as well as the US. So we're keeping an eye on it. Yeah, TikTok is interesting. It works really well for those lower price point impulse purchases. So it's not for all our brands. I mean, we have a higher end luxury jewelry brand. It wouldn't make sense there. The client would laugh at us if we recommended it because it just feels so out of left field for them. But I think that's kind of the beauty of what's going on in 2026 is like Gen Alpha is using Pinterest again. Who would have thought like that would work for young people. So we're pushing more spend there for our Gen Alpha brands. We're doing Reddit ads for like women's health and women's sexual wellness. Again,
okay. That's a new one. I haven't heard of that. That's cool. Well, because we done some Reddit ads. The CPM was super low. Cost per click super high. They don't like it. They don't like us. Like we doing it for some services like buyer's agents and mortgage brokers. Maybe that's the reason.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure. I think one of our brands, the founder, is pretty active on Reddit. So I think that helps a lot. But otherwise, I think like there's some of these product categories of like women's sexual wellness, like Meta and Google kind of hate it. So if we can find a way into a different ad channel, that'll probably work. And if I think what we're dealing with now, I just came off a call with that team. It's like, is it about pleasure or is it about like health and
positioning?
I think things like that will really skew what works in that lane in particular. And then Axon, formerly AppLovin, is where we're doing some media buys too. And I think the value of that platform, which just serves ads within app placements, is the watch time is very different compared to other social channels. So the hook they're going to decide at like second 7 or 8 if they're going to stay, where like traditional social, it's like 2 to 3 seconds.
Even shorter. So you're like all these platforms and you try to aggregate it together into one like reporting sheet and then
no, I mean, I think that comes from industry stats. So that's not our stat. So we haven't pulled that to qualify that statement or not, but that's what we're kind of articulating design needs off of, is a very different watch time.
And you have your own like designs and everything, designers in-house as well. I could do a lot of that.
No, we're a little like you on the influencer side, where we creative brief our clients as often as needed, sometimes quarterly, oftentimes monthly. And so we'll say, okay, for the media spend next month, we need 30 new assets, some crazy number these days because of Andromeda. And then we'll kind of say, we want 3 of this concept, 3 of the
buckets,
other concept. So we'll kind of go down and give them a handful of reference examples from other brands and specifics for what we would recommend they do.
I've done this thing for a friend of mine. She invented she didn't invent it, but she ran a successful, she found a successful business for nipple covers, right? That's beauty. And she was starting and she couldn't really afford a real thing. So what we did, we created a guide for her, for the influencers actually, on what to make. Because, if you start saying stuff to influencers, they like to talk about themselves a lot at the start, right? But that's a hook. That's, like we needed that time, right? So we gave like examples. It was like a Canva guide to all the UGC creators. We said, this is what we want you to create. And it was like do's and don'ts and everything. And we sent it out. It worked really well. So we're sending it to our clients. So we've been doing that. And that's been really good for that.
And those are like those touches of value add where maybe it's or isn't in your scope of work, but just going to do that work for brands is really helpful, especially if they get to like leverage it in other parts of their business. And
I think the last thing is probably for me is like YouTube ads. YouTube ads have been very different since they changed the formula, and people are struggling, especially e-commerce and smaller AOVs. It's been hard. I don't know if every Google rep I talk to, they're saying they're bringing it back. So I haven't seen that yet. So that's something I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of talk about it, but I'm with you that even like YouTube for conversion is not
horrible, man.
So just have to find the place in the funnel, and if it is justified, great. But for us, it's not 100% slam dunk. I mean, I think leveraging it through PMax is how we do it for some of our smaller brands, and not looking at the percentage of spend there versus other placements.
Definitely. Even like just talking to you, I think that, I don't think I'll be very good at a lot of the niches that you be part of. So if someone I talk to and they're into that stuff and they're big enough, I think I'll definitely send them your way.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, we're getting close to the end. I want to ask you 2 more things. The first is, it sounds like you have a very eclectic background. I love it. But if you were going back to like your early 20s, what advice would you give yourself?
If I was going back to my early 20s, I would say get into this a lot earlier, right? Get into this a lot earlier and pick a niche and focus on the niche, because it makes life so much easier. I'm done now. Like, it's too late now. It's the clientele is too widespread. That's what I
Well,
would
I
say.
mean, you have e-commerce. That's a
Yeah,
broad
that's the
niche, but
thing.
it's narrower. Great. I love that advice. And so give us a little bit about like what type of brand should come to you, and then how
Yeah.
do they find you online?
Yeah, definitely. So at the moment, websites are always the best. Email me hello@digitalgoliath.com.au. The brands that should come to me are the brands that's not happy with agency or they feel like they're being overcharged. There's a lot of them. Yeah.
I know there's so many. Well,
Yeah.
we'll wrap with that, Jeremy. It was
Sure.
so great to have you on today. Can't wait to do this again.